Augustine argues that the clemency of Alaric towards the Christians in Rome is unprecedented in military history. This is, of course, an ideological claim that's inaccurate, but Augustine's point is that the Romans who are critical of Christianity should instead be thankful to it, since it was on account of Christianity that they were spared. The idea was that it was out of respect for the name of Christ and the Christian God that Alaric granted mercy. On this point, Augustine refers to an old way of thinking concerning both politics and religion in the ancient world. In many different cultures of antiquity, the patron gods were conceived to be the protectors of the state. For this reason, their temples occupied a central place in the city. When a people took up arms and fought a foreign power, it was thought that their gods joined them in the military campaign. We've seen in Homer how the Greek gods and goddesses assist their favorites in times of need and how they work to undermine those who have insulted them. Similarly, the national gods work to further the national cause of specific cities. As we've seen in the Peloponnesian War, it was thought that Apollo was fighting with the Spartans in causing the plague that afflicted Athens. The patron deity of Athens, Athena, is portrayed wearing military gear with a helmet and spear. Her job is to defend Athens militarily and to extend the city's empire. Augustine plays on this understanding in reference to the Roman tradition, as portrayed by Virgil. One of the key goals of the Aeneid was to establish a connection between Rome and the mythology of the Greeks, thus grounding Roman history in the older, more distinguished tradition. As we've seen, Virgil's strategy for doing so was to make the Trojan hero Aeneas the founder of the original settlement around the area of Rome. An important part of the establishment of this continuity was the portrayal of Aeneas rescuing the ancient gods of Troy from the burning temples and bringing them with him to the new country. In this way, Virgil attempts to craft a long tradition for the Roman gods, thus establishing their legitimacy. Augustine seizes upon this and turns it into a critical point. Like the other cities of antiquity, Rome also relies on its gods for protection. The king of the gods, Jupiter, was thought to defend Rome and to represent her imperial power. One of Jupiter's symbols was that of the eagle, and the connection to the Roman military was represented by placing an eagle on the top of the military standards of the Roman legions. Augustine argues that it's absurd to think of Jupiter and the other Roman gods as protecting the city when, in light of Virgil's account, these same gods failed to save Troy from destruction. He asks, quote, "Ought the Romans, as prudent men, to have entrusted the defense of Rome to gods unable to defend themselves?" He quotes from the account of the Greeks' merciless pillaging of the citadel, the temple, and the religious places in Troy as portrayed in the Aeneid. Augustine points out that Virgil himself explicitly describes the Trojan deities as conquered and defeated. After having been conquered, the gods needed to be saved by Aeneas. Augustine argues that it's an absurdity to believe that real gods could be saved by a man. Moreover, he claims that it is absurd to think that these gods, who have already suffered defeat once, will defend Rome effectively in the future. He states critically, "What folly is it to see any wisdom in committing Rome to such guardians, and in supposing that it could not be sacked while it retained possession of them? To worship vanquished gods as protectors and defenders is to rely not on divinities, but on defaulters." For Augustine, the situation is clear. The pagan gods were unable to help Rome during her time of need, since they were not real gods. By contrast, it was only by virtue of the help of the Christian God that some of the Romans were spared during the Visigoth invasion.